Have you ever wondered how some WWE superstars went from almost having nothing to becoming insanely successful? Because before the championships, before Hollywood, and before the millions, some of WWE biggest stars were struggling just to get by. Brock Lesnar once said he had 4 cents in his pocket. John Cena was literally sleeping in his car. Batista became a WWE superstar and lost everything trying to be an actor. And The Rock, he famously came home from his failed football career with only $7. So how did they go from that to this? And which WWE superstar had the craziest transformation? Let's find out.
Commandments, wow. Man, can't tell me nothing about this coke. Can't tell me nothing about this crack.
We're starting with Becky Lynch. But Becky's story isn't exactly about being broke. It's about almost giving up on the thing that would eventually change her life. Becky started wrestling when she was still a teenager. She traveled around the world wrestling in places like Europe, Canada, and Japan. Everything looked like it was heading in the right direction until Becky was only 19 and started questioning whether wrestling was actually going to work. So she walked away, she tried personal training, she studied acting, and then she became a flight attendant for about 2.5 years. Imagine getting on a flight and your flight attendant is the future first ever women's wrestler to main event a WrestleMania. But Becky has said she would wake up feeling like this isn't what I'm meant to do. So eventually she came back. In 2013, WWE signed Becky Lynch. Then came NXT, the main roster, the 4 horsewomen. But even then, she wasn't immediately the biggest star. Until 2018, Becky Lynch became the man. She won the 2019 Royal Rumble, and then WrestleMania 35 happened. Becky defeated Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey in the first women's match to ever main event WrestleMania. A woman that once walked away from wrestling to become a flight attendant became the biggest woman star, debatably, but became the biggest women's star of all time in WWE. But our next story gets much darker. Because before Booker T became a world champion, his life was heading in a completely different direction. Booker lost both of his parents while he was still young, and eventually, he started getting into serious trouble. In 1987, Booker was involved in armed robberies. He was arrested, convicted, and sent to prison. Think about that. That's the same Booker T that would eventually wrestle The Rock, Stone Cold, Triple H, and became one of the biggest stars in WCW, and he was just sitting in prison. That's crazy. After getting out, his brother Stevie Ray helped point him towards professional wrestling. They trained, started working their way up, and eventually became Harlem Heat. Booker became one of WCW biggest stars, then became a five-time WCW World Heavyweight Champion. And when WCW closed, Booker came to WWE, King of the Ring, World Heavyweight Champion, WrestleMania, and eventually 2-time WWE Hall of Famer. Prison to WWE Hall of Fame? That's already insane. But our next superstar, he once said he had less money than you could find underneath a couch. 4 cents. That's it. But before we get there, Brock Lesnar grew up in Webster, South Dakota on a dairy farm. And Brock wasn't exactly driving around in luxury either. He has said he drove a Mazda RX-7 that cost him about $100. Let me say that again. That cost him about $100. And it was missing the 4th gear, beat and reversed. But Brock had one thing going for him. He was an absolute freak of an athlete. He became an incredible amateur wrestler, went to the University of Minnesota, and in 2000 became the NCAA Division I Heavyweight National Champion.
Brock Lesnar from Minnesota is your heavyweight champion in the year 2000, and the senior goes out with a big win.
But here's what's crazy. Being the best heavyweight college wrestler in America didn't mean Brock suddenly had money. Brock later told UFC that after college, he literally had not $400, not 40, not $4, but 4 cents. He said he was getting beers from his friends, steaks from his girlfriend, and then he was presented with another option. A legitimate contract with WWE.
He didn't really care about any of this.
And that changed everything. Brock got sent to developmental, debuted on WWE television in 2002, the year I was born, wins King of the Ring, and then Brock Lesnar beats The Rock to become the WWE champion at only 25 years old. From 4 cents to WWE champion. Crazy. But Brock wasn't done there. Left WWE, eventually entered MMA and became UFC heavyweight champion. Then came back to WWE, ended the Undertaker WrestleMania streak, and became one of the WWE biggest attractions.
So dangerous.
4 cent, NCAA champion, WWE champion, UFC champion. That's ridiculous, but at least Brock had somewhere to sleep, because our next superstar was sleeping in the back seat of his car. Before John Cena became John Cena, he moved from Massachusetts to California, and things did not go according to plan. He was working around the fitness world, but eventually he ran out of money, and Cena didn't have somewhere to live, so his home became a 1991 Lincoln. Cena has talked about keeping his clothes in the trunk and sleeping in the back. Crazy.
I'm homeless?
Well, a Lincoln Continental is a big car. I lived in the back of a 91 Lincoln Continental for a while, but it was 3 or 4 months, and then I moved into a garage. I'm very fortunate for my story because it was my choice to have hard times.
It's crazy because that's the future of WWE, the future GOAT of WWE, and he was living like that. He would use the gym facilities, work, sleep in the car, and keep going. And eventually professional wrestling entered the picture. Cena started training, he became the prototype, WWE eventually signed him, and then in 2002, John Cena walked onto SmackDown. I think we all know where this is going.
Ruthless aggression.
And challenged Kurt Angle. And after that, you already know. Doctor of Thugonomics, WWE Champion, You Can't See Me, WrestleMania main events, 16-time world champions. I lied, 17-time world champion, and eventually Hollywood. Movies, television, Peacemaker, all the ads in the world, and one of the most recognizable celebrities to ever come out of WWE. Sleeping in the car, face of WWE, Hollywood. The guy sleeping in the back of the Lincoln became John Cena. But Cena's story is almost the opposite of the next one. Because our next superstar made it, became rich, then became broke again. Batista's story might be the biggest roller coaster in this entire video. Dave Batista has spoken openly about growing up poor. Eventually, bodybuilding became a huge part of his life, and that helped lead him towards professional wrestling. But Batista wasn't some 18-year-old prodigy. He was already getting close to 30 when he seriously started pursuing professional wrestling. Imagine almost being 30, looking at professional wrestling, and you're like, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to become a world champion and come on a stage and hit the... But somehow, that's exactly what happened. He made the WWE, started as Decon Batista, and eventually joined Evolution. Triple H, Ric Flair, Randy Orton, Batista, and his career exploded. He won the 2005 Royal Rumble, beat Triple H at WrestleMania 21, and became the World Heavyweight Champion. So that's it, right? Poor kid becomes a WWE superstar, makes it, end of story. Nope. Batista wanted to become an actor, and he was willing to risk everything to do it. He left WWE in 2010 while he was still making a very good living, and then things fell apart. Batista has said that for 3 years, he couldn't get acting work. He said he went broke, lost everything, and struggled for years. Think about how crazy that is. You already made it. You already became world heavyweight champion. You're already famous, and you're willingly walking away. And end up broke again because you believe you could become an actor. And then Batista landed Guardians of the Galaxy, and everything changed. Guardians, Blade Runner 2049, Dune, Glass Onion, and an entire second acting career. Poor WWE superstar, success, broke again, Hollywood. I don't know if that's brave, crazy, or both. But there's one story left, and there's a reason why we're ending here. $7. That's where our final story starts. Before Dwayne Johnson became The Rock, wrestling wasn't even plan A. His dream was football. He played at the University of Miami and wanted to make it professionally. Eventually, he ended up in Canada with the Calgary Stampeders. And then his football dream collapsed. He got cut. He returned to Miami without even having his own car. And years later, Rock explained what happened when he looked inside his wallet.
When I got cut from Canada, I had $7 in my pocket. And I always tell that story. So now my production company is $7, advertising agency is $7, everything is $7.
A 5, a 1, and some change. That's what The Rock remembers having. Football was over, he almost had no money, so now he needed another plan. And that's when Dwayne turned towards professional wrestling. Except even that didn't immediately work. He debuted as Rocky Maivia. WWE wanted him to be this smiling babyface, and fans hated the absolute crap out of him. They were chanting,
Die, Rocky, die.
Imagine you having $7, your football career just died, and you make it to the WWE, and now 1,000 fans are telling you to die?
That's the gratitude I get from you pieces of crap.
That's crazy. Dwayne stopped trying to be the person everybody wanted him to be and became The Rock, the People's Champion, WWE Champion, Stone Cold vs. Rock, WrestleMania, one of the biggest stars wrestling had ever created. But somehow, wrestling was only the beginning. Movies, producing, businesses, endorsement, Hollywood, liquor, wine, until the guy who once had $7 became one of the most recognizable entertainers on earth. But my favorite part of this story is what he did with that number. He named his production company $7 Productions after one of the lowest moments of his life. $7, WWE Champion, Hollywood, $7 Production. That's why I saved The Rock for last. He didn't just escape that moment, he turned that into part of his brand. So, I can't lie, after researching all these stories, I realized something. Broke to billionaire isn't really about finding out how much money is sitting in somebody's bank account. It's about the difference between where they started and where they ended up. Becky Lynch walked away from wrestling and spent years as a flight attendant before becoming the man. Booker T went to prison to becoming a 2-time Hall of Famer. Brock Lesnar said he had 4 cents and he became the UFC champion and the WWE champion. John Cena went from sleeping in his car to becoming, in my opinion, the GOAT of the WWE. Batista became successful, lost everything, and rebuilt himself through Hollywood. And The Rock, he turned $7 into an empire. But now I want to know, which one of these stories surprised you the most? Because I'm sorry, Brock Lesnar having 4 cents is absolutely insane. And if you think making the money is crazy, wait until you see how WWE superstars actually spend it.
Gotta be like,